Shalom, elect. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. This is Dr. Ephraim. Today's date is June 4th, 2021. And as usual, I hope and pray that you all are in great spirits and great health. I thank you all for the prayers and well wishes. And it was truly uplifting to me, and I feel great. All right. So today's lesson, I'm gonna speak on. I'm going to use this opportunity to speak on this whole Black Wall Street thing. For some reason, it's been, taken of great interest. People have been taking great interest in it as of late for some reason. I've known about Black Wall Street as well as many of the other things that happened to our people throughout history for years. That's just, things that, we aren't taught in school, So I don't know why all of a sudden there's this great interest in Black Wall Street. The last three survivors, like 100, 102, 104, something like that, years old or whatever. Very, very old people. For those of you who may not know anything about Black Wall Street, and that's very likely, because I've read some things, and you'd be surprised. How many? Oh, I'm not, but you'd be surprised how many black people don't know anything about Black Wall Street. There's so many incidents in history with our people. We could look at it's just so many. We could look at Rosewood. We could look at obviously Black Wall Street. We could look at what happened with Emmett Till. We could just go down the line, all the atrocities that our people have experienced, since arriving here in North America. And ordinarily, what I would do is, I would tie in what we've went through to Scripture, because it's all tied in. It really is. Even Black Wall Street, it's all tied into the curses, man. But I'm not gonna do that today. I'm gonna take an approach as a black man. As a black man who cares and loves his people, even those who don't know, who we really are, and things of that nature. So I'm going to take a slightly different approach today. I'm not going to tie Black Wall Street into the curses, but I want to. There's a couple of things I want to unpack with that, though, because then I saw that recently the President of the United States made a visit to Oklahoma to commemorate the 100-year anniversary of Black Wall Street. And I'm like, okay, so once again, they just passed the anti-Asian hate bill, and kudos to those brothers and sisters. But yet here, black folks, we get another speech, another commemoration. There are many different demographics of people that have gotten reparations from this country, but yet when it comes to black people, we get speeches, right? We get but pull yourself up by your bootstraps, or it's just different when it comes to black people. And at the end of the day, we're all for the so-called African Americans that's living here in America. While we're living here, things affect us. You can give speeches all day, but legislation is what makes a change in people's lives. And in other words, we get speeches and other people get laws, right? Last I checked, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 is a very long time ago. And on top of that, the wealth gap has not changed much at all since 1964. The equal pay, right? Nothing has really changed, man. Since 1964. But anyway, I'm gonna get in all. I'm gonna touch on all of that, and more importantly, I want to address one of the questions I've seen the most is that why can't we just rebuild Black Wall Street? Yeah, we're going to really get into that. So I got to set the tone, right? So let me go ahead and give you the story on what Black Wall Street is, what happened, things in that nature. Okay, let's get it. Okay, um, here we go. Now, before the Tulsa Race Massacre, where the city's black district of Greenwood was attacked by a white mob, resulting in 2 days of bloodshed and destruction, the area had been considered one of the most affluent African American communities in the United States for the early part of the 20th century. The massacre, which began on May 31st, 1921, and left hundreds of black residents dead and 1,000 houses destroyed, often overshadows the history of the venerable black enclave itself. Greenwood District, with a population of 10,000 at the time, had thrived as the epicenter of African American business and culture, particularly on bustling Greenwood Avenue, commonly known as Black Wall Street. Now, Black Wall Street was actually developed, on Indian territory. Right? It was founded in 1906. Greenwood was developed on Indian territory, the vast area where Native American tribes had been forced to relocate, which encompasses much of modern-day eastern Oklahoma. Some African Americans who had been former slaves of the tribes had subsequently integrated into tribal communities, acquired allotted land in Greenwood through the Dawes Act, a U.S. law that gave land to individual Native Americans. And many black sharecroppers fleeing racial oppression relocated to the region as well, in search of a better life post-Civil War. And from many of you who may or may not know about the quote-unquote Trail of Tears, please Google that and do a little research on that, and then, come back to what I just read to you about the Native Americans in Oklahoma. Okay, Oklahoma begins to be promoted as a safe haven for African Americans who start to come, particularly post-emancipation, to Indian territory, says Michelle Place, executive director of the Tulsa Historical Society and Museum. The largest number of black townships after the Civil War were located in Oklahoma. Between 1865 and 1920, African Americans founded dozens of black townships and settlements in the region. O.W. Gurley, a wealthy black landowner, purchased 40 acres. Ironic, right? Purchased 40 acres of land in Tulsa, naming it Greenwood after the town in Mississippi. Built for black people by black people. Gurley is credited with having the first black business in Greenwood in 1906, says Hannibal Johnson, author of The Black Wall Street from Riot to Renaissance in Tulsa's historic Greenwood district. He had a vision to create something for black people by black people. Gurley started with a boarding house for African Americans. Then word began to spread about opportunities for black people in Greenwood, and they flocked to the district. O.W. Gurley would actually loan money to people who wanted to start a business, says Christy Williams, vice chair of the African American Affairs Commission in Tulsa. They actually had a system where someone who wanted to own a business could get help in doing that. And let me just say, as a sidebar, I have to interject this. Black Wall Street was more built and born out of necessity, right? Back in those days, African Americans, majority of us didn't have a lot. So we used to, we would trade, or we would, barter, and as the saying here, this Mr. Gurley, he would loan money to African Americans because no other bank would loan to us, right? So think of that as we move forward. Black Wall Street was born really out of necessity, out of self-reliance, because we were so ostracized, right? We were disenfranchised. So we pulled ourselves up by our bootstraps and did what we had to do, and we flourished. I mean, there were many wealthy families on Black Wall Street back in 1920. So let's adjust for inflation. Black Wall Street today would be worth billions. So I'd like to see what kind of reparations they're even talking about, because what they did burning down Black Wall Street and destroying that place. I mean, just destroying all that generational wealth of black people, man. I mean, I don't think our mind could really begin to fathom, how great that is, right? But I had to kind of interject that as a sidebar. We did exactly what they would tell us to do. We pulled ourselves up by our bootstraps and we built something great, and they couldn't stand it. The jealousy, the hate, the envy. How dare they, do better than we are, or whatever the case may be, right? So anyway, I had to interject that. Back on point. Other prominent black entrepreneurs followed suit after, Mr. Gurley. Mr. J.B. Stratford, born into slavery in Kentucky, later becoming a lawyer and activist, moved to Greenwood in 1898. Now, he built a 55-room luxury hotel bearing his name, the largest black-owned hotel in the country. An outspoken businessman, Stratford believed that black people had a better chance of economic progress if they pooled their resources. Come on here now. Greenwood became self-contained and reliant. Another side note real quick. The Gap Band is from Tulsa, and I believe Gap actually stood for Greenwood something Archer. I don't know, but those guys are actually from Tulsa, and that name Greenwood is a part of their name in Gap for the Gap Band. Just a real quick little side note. All right. A.G. Smitherman, a publisher whose family moved to Indian Territory in the 1890s, founded the Tulsa Star, a black newspaper headquartered in Greenwood that became instrumental in establishing the district's socially conscious mindset. The newspaper regularly informed African Americans about their legal rights and any court rulings or legislation, as I spoke about that were beneficial or harmful to the community. And it's ironic that they said that, because I just spoke on that, about how, legislation and laws is what affects us, affects our lives, our livelihoods even, right? Not speeches, laws and legislation. Demands for equal rights were an ongoing mission for black Americans in Tulsa despite Jim Crow oppression. Greenwood itself had a railway track running through it that separated, Greenwood itself had a railway track running through it that separated the black and white populations. Consequently, Gurley and Stratford's vision of having a self-contained and self-reliant black economy came to be not only by desire but by logistics. As a practical matter, they had no choice as to where to locate their businesses, said Johnson. Tulsa was rigidly segregated, and Oklahoma became increasingly racist after statehood. On Greenwood Avenue, there were luxury shops, restaurants, grocery stores, hotels, jewelry and clothing stores, movie theaters, barbershops and salons, a library, pool halls, nightclubs, and offices for doctors, lawyers, and dentists. Greenwood also had its own school system, post office, a savings and loan bank, hospital, and bus and taxi service. Greenwood was home to far less affluent African Americans as well, though. A significant number still worked in menial jobs, such as janitors, dishwashers, porters, and domestics. The money they earned outside of Greenwood was spent within the district, however. It is said that within Greenwood, every dollar would change hands 19 times before it left the community, said Place. I mean, can you all imagine that? Every dollar would change hands 19 times before it even left the community. I couldn't even fathom a thought like that today. I couldn't. And I'm going to get into the second half of this lesson, why I don't believe we can rebuild Black Wall Street. And I mean, just to kind of go over some of the things I touched on. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, we had barbershops, man, hotels. I mean, our own banks. I mean, it's sad and it's disheartening. I mean, I get it, but it doesn't take away from the pain. I mean, we did it. We did that, my people. We did that. But now, because of the hatefulness and the jealousy and envy, now we get to talk about what once was, or back in the day. Anybody want to hear about no back in the day, man? It's 2021, but yet they would have our kids believe that we weren't nothing but slaves in this country. All we did was come here as slaves. We were hung, we died, like we did nothing, like we accomplished nothing. And it's just it's a lot of different things, touching on it. I mean, it's a part of history. You can't deny it. You can't, it is what it is, right? And you know how we do here. We address things, head on. You know, but can you imagine? You talking about reparations? See, the thing about that with Black Wall Street is that you literally have those businesses. They have to appreciate those businesses and adjust them for inflation. Now the thing is, now who do as far as the descendants and how the money would be allocated, but that's some serious reparations, man. I mean, that is so foul on so many levels. I mean, 1921, like I can't even like really fathom that we did that back in 1921. But yet, in 2021, we can't get anything. We can't do anything together. We can't. We don't even. Anyway, I'm gonna get into that in the next segment. Okay, this last segment is going to be a combination of a couple things. Number one, I mentioned about why I felt that Black Wall Street couldn't or wouldn't be rebuilt, and there's a long list of reasons I have as to why that couldn't and wouldn't happen. But first, let's kind of address this whole reparations thing. Now, first of all, I mean, it's been 100 years since this gross injustice of what they did, to our people in Tulsa. And I mean, you would think that in 100 years, some good person would step up and say, you know what happened to those people was wrong. It was unjust. It was atrocious. Let's do the right thing and compensate the ancestors of those black people who were affected by the Black Wall Street massacre. But no, not a single person in position of authority stepped up and said, "Hey, let's do the right thing." Right? And why it's like that with black people, that's probably another discussion for another day, but that's how it is. It's like when it comes to us, there is no quote unquote right thing. We have to scrape, crawl, and fight for every single thing, every crumb, every morsel that we get. And our ancestors built this country for free, man. Stop playing with me. Like, seriously? But I think that in order to address this whole reparations thing, I think we need to understand or get an understanding of which is greater. Is it reparations or is it compensation? Now, if it's essentially the same, okay, cool. But if not, if by the changing of a word greatly enhances, increases, or the financial compensation is due, then I think we should look at that. The ones who's affected and who would be affected by that should look at that, because reparations is finances for righting a wrong. Compensation is when, listen, compensating you for us destroying your business, destroying your family's wealth. Like, I would think that's a different thing than reparations. I don't know. Now, by definition, they're synonymous, reparations and compensation. But if you look at it, like, and I mentioned this in the last segment, from a compensatory standpoint, if adjusted for inflation, the money that Wall Street would be worth now would be in the billions. So don't think for one second that the powers that be aren't aware of that. They're going to give all the speeches and say all the good stuff, all the right stuff. Maybe give us a movie or documentary or some, a series on Netflix or something like that. But they're going to try their best not to address compensating the ancestors of the victims of the Black Wall Street massacre. And I'm telling you, and that's exactly why, because the amount of money that we're talking, like this ain't no 40 acres and a mule. I mean, that in itself, that 40 acres and a mule, and I don't want to go on a tangent, but that 40 acres and a mule, now you want to talk reparations and what that would be worth today? That's another topic for another day as well. But it's the same concept. That 40 acres and a mule today, what it would be worth today, would be significantly much more than what it was back when they promised us that and never came through and never gave it to our ancestors, right? So I think it would be worth looking into which is greater, reparations or compensation, because adjusted for inflation, man, we talking some serious money, man, seriously. And that I'm gonna segue that into why I feel that Black Wall Street today just wouldn't work or couldn't work. And there's several reasons. Some of it's heartbreaking, disappointing, but it is what it is. It's our people. One of the biggest main reasons why Black Wall Street wouldn't work or couldn't work today is because is mentality. The mentality of our people back then compared to now, it's apples and oranges. I mentioned in the last segment that, Black Wall Street basically was born out of necessity, out of a need to do for ourselves, to be self-reliant, because back in those days, blacks couldn't go into a bank and get a loan. Right, we were kept out of so many things. We were ostracized. We were disenfranchised. We were given a little of nothing, expected to make something. Right, so our mentality is way different. Like blacks have more wealth now than we ever have overall. And that's not even saying a lot, because even with that right there said, as a whole, as a people, we're still on the lower end of the wealth gap. Even having more wealthy blacks now than we've ever had in history in this country or whatever, we're still on the lower end. So what does that tell you? That only affects a small percentage of us. Okay, which leads me to the second reason why Black Wall Street couldn't and wouldn't work. Number one, once they figure it all out as far as who's due the payments and the compensation and so on and so forth, that's not going to benefit a majority of us. And as such, that's going to generate some hate, some envy, some animosity, right? Forget the fact that their ancestors went through what they went through and lost their businesses and a generation of wealth. Forget all that. A lot of us going to be looking at it like, well, we're not getting anything from it. We're not benefiting from it, whatever the case may be. And that's not the mentality to have, but guess what? That's the mentality a lot of us will have. And as such, leads me to my third reason why Black Wall Street couldn't and wouldn't work today. Because of that hate and that jealousy and that animosity, they're going to talk down. They're going to talk down, they're going to talk against it. People that look like me and you, they're gonna. Just wait for it on cue. They're gonna come out the woodworks. They're gonna be on Fox News and all these different stations, whatever the case may be. And then people that look like me and you are gonna talk against it. They're gonna talk down on it. Oh no, we shouldn't give them. You shouldn't cut a check and this and that. And just wait for it. On cue. Just wait for it. Hate, jealousy, and envy, and you can best believe, which leads me to the next reason why Black Wall Street couldn't and wouldn't work today, is because, wait for it, one or several of us will try to definitely sell us out. Just wait for it. Historically, it's true. It's sad, but look at history. Historically, this is a given. They're going to use people that look like me and you to try to sell us out. Period. It's like black people, we're our biggest enemies. Crab in the barrel. You know, and I say it all the time. Those of you that know me, I say it all the time. We represent the best and the worst, both at the same time. Two extremes. That's us. That's our people. I love us, man, but we got issues, and it starts with our mentality. You know, wait for it. Who here has heard of Denmark Vesey? Well, when you get a chance, Google him. Denmark Vesey was a mulatto freed slave from Charleston, South Carolina, who only planned the biggest slave revolt that ever would have happened in history, but it never happened. Why? Because he was sold out to other black men. They sold him out. And so they arrested him, and I don't know if they hung him or what it did, but they killed him. They definitely killed him. I'm back in that time. I'm pretty sure they probably hung him, but I'm not sure. Don't quote me. But bottom line, they killed him, Denmark Vesey, and they said that what he was planning would have been the biggest slave revolt in history, but it never happened because our people sold him out. And it's sad to say, man, but wait for it, man. We are such a crab in a barrel mentality people. You understand what I'm saying? And it's like, instead of saying, okay, well, listen, maybe we won't directly benefit from the reparations or compensation of what happened on Black Wall Street, but maybe collaterally, as a people, we can benefit. You know, it's all about mentality. See, now we have all these different we have all these perceptions of options and choices, right? See, back then it was necessity. You know, we had to do what we had to do to depend on ourselves, to be self-reliant. Now we have all these facades of choices and decisions, and so the mentality is different. You know, we are mentally, we are a long ways from Black Wall Street as a people. Y'all follow me? We are a long ways from Black Wall Street, and that's one of the main things as to why it wouldn't work. Another reason why Black Wall Street wouldn't work today is because black folks, we cannot agree on anything. We can't agree on purpose. We can't agree on leadership. We can't agree on agenda. We can't agree on a plan. I mean, we can't agree on anything. How do we expect to get anything accomplished if we can't agree? The Bible speaks of this, and I didn't want to bring this here, but the Bible speaks, so can two walk together except they agree? How do we expect to accomplish anything if we can't agree on simple things, right? And then sometimes, it be petty stuff. Oh, I don't like him. I don't like her. I don't like what he said this, or I don't like what she said that, or, whatever the case may be. Arguing, disagreeing. We will not be able to agree. We just won't. Adding to the fact that some of us, those snakes that we can't trust, this looking to sell us out. Whoever seen that movie Deacons for Defense? And that old black man was doing exactly to them what I'm telling you right now. He was going back to and selling out his peoples to the white folks. And it's sad to say, man, but it's always going to be a cat like that. There's always going to be a Tim Scott, in our midst, whether we know it or not. Always. So we have to look at all of that, man, in its totality. I'm not saying it to be negative. You guys know me. I'm saying it because it's real, because it's true. It's tight, but it's right. Okay? Why don't, as an alternative to maybe trying to rebuild Wall Street, why don't we take the wealthiest blacks in every city and state and pool their resources, right? And build their own version of Wall Streets in their respective cities and states, and then work it collectively that way. Right? Something like that. I submit as an alternative. Right? Because see, the descendants of Black Wall Street, whoever they may be, God bless them, they deserve whatever they get from that situation. I don't want anything. I don't expect anything. I don't expect it to benefit me at all. My family is not from Tulsa. I don't know anyone from Oklahoma, the Greenwood section, other than the Gap Band. And I thought that was pretty cool to find out that they were from there. So me personally, it doesn't affect me. How many of us can be affected positively, financially by that situation? Hey, by all means, God bless them. right? But I think we need to think of a bigger picture in terms of, trying to, like I said, we have more black wealth now than we ever have. One Oprah is not going to make a difference. One Michael Jordan is not going to make a difference. One Jay-Z, right? Because he's the most successful, rapper, is not going to make a difference. One Beyonce is not going to make a difference. But when you start putting all these artists and entertainers, start pooling their resources together, that's a lot. We're talking a lot of money. Okay, so we need to be looking at it more of like, okay, like I said, maybe the wealthiest people from each state, wealthiest black people from each state, get together, start small, start within your state, start building your own version of Wall Street. And I mean, there's so many other factors, small and great, that would factor into why, our Black Wall Street today it's not the same. It's just a totally different era, right? I think we can build versions of Wall Streets in our respective, maybe states, something like that. I don't know. I don't pretend to have all the answers, but I just know that as a people, our mentality is so much different, man, than it was back then. I mean, trying to get black folks on board for anything that involves, coming together and sticking together, sticking up for each other, not selling each other out, not dissing each other, in front of the masses, just being a well, I ain't gonna say that, but I just think that we need to we need to recondition our mentality. It's almost like we're institutionalized in a way, man. I mean, I believe back in the day I heard I can't believe it was Brother Khalid Muhammad, or it might have been Brother Farrakhan. One of them brothers back in the day said that made so much sense is, man, black people, no matter of fact, you know what? It was Muhammad Ali. That's right. It was Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali said that it's so hard for us to have the mentality to do for ourselves because we think so much like white people, since black people are like white people now. And he broke that down. I'm gonna find that speech. I'm gonna repost it if I can. But he broke that down. I was like, wow. He says, we feel like we can't do anything without the white man in some way. And it's like we've been brainwashed to believe that. And I believe this brother Roland Martin told this one young brother when he said, from Georgia, and don't get me wrong, I don't know it verbatim, but the young brother, I think he said he wanted to build a school or something like that, and do it by himself. And Roland Martin, who's a well-known brother, among black people, called the young brother an idiot for not wanting to include white people, or into the project, whatever the case may be. And I mean, I just thought of that because that makes a point that I'm making. Right? It's like we have that mentality, man. You got a lot of us that'll talk that pro-black stuff. They'll raise their black fists and, talk all this stuff. But when it's all said and done, they want to run to, who they want to run to when it's all said and done. Divide and conquer, man. I mean, that Willie Lynch is so prevalent, my brothers and sisters, man. I mean, it's just dishearteningly sad. Pitting us against one another. The old against the young, men against the women, right? Dressing up, toxic feminism and calling it Black Lives Matter, right? And trying to sell that and try to peddle that to us, right? I mean, it's so much, man, that we deal with. And so all of those things and all of these things I'm saying, is why I don't feel Black Wall Street can be rebuilt in 2021. But again, I'm going to say this. I'm going to get off it. I'm going to end this lesson. But for the brothers and all the brothers and sisters, man, who are descended from those brothers and sisters that lost their lives and their businesses on Black Wall Street in the Greenwood section of Tulsa, Oklahoma, I pray that, you guys get whatever you can, whatever you deserve, from that situation. And, as a people, we just need to kind of continue on, man, and starting first and foremost with our mentality, to try to make a difference. And only when we do that is when we start to really truly try to make a difference economically in the lives of our people. All right. So on that note, I hope you guys enjoyed the lesson. Look forward to Shabbat service tomorrow. I think I'm going to deal with in lieu of my recent sickness. I'm going to deal with dietary laws on this Shabbat. All right. So look forward to that. So hope you guys have a great rest of your day. This is Dr. Ephraim signing off. Saying Hayya by Yeshem, Yeshua HaMashiach, Baruch Atah Adonai. Shalom, elect.